Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm back in one of my favourite vehicles at tier 10. It's gotta be the original tier 10 Super Heavy. It's the heaviest tank in the game, the one and only, the MAUS. Now, this was the original tier 10 German tank. Of course, the E100 coming later towards the end of 2011, and I talked about that being my first tier 10 tank on this channel a couple of weeks ago. Now, the MAUS has been out of the loop really on this channel in the last year, with the last one being pretty much talking about it. Is it too good at the end of 2017? And yeah, I guess it was kind of too good, because in update 920, Wargaming significantly nerfed the rate of fire of this vehicle, and also they reduced the hit points from an astounding 3,200, pretty much double what many of the tanks that the MAUS would meet would have, down to 3,000. Still the most hit points in World of Tanks, but not substantially so. Not that much higher than the tier 10 Japanese Heavy. Now, I get slammed by an Object 268 as we go up on the hill, but let's not focus about that right now, because I got another 3,000 hit points to give away, right? And quite a lot of people do see the MAUS as being an XP pinata. And as I was driving up this slope, I was thinking, wow, this is a really good scenario for the MAUS, right? Look at the enemy team. There's only 3 top tier tanks at tier 10, albeit 2 of them are in a platoon together, those 2 tank destroyers. And the most important thing, there's no artillery. And of course, we're playing on Encounter Malinovka, which is usually a fight for the top of the hill, and he who takes the hill is going to be able to win the battle. But of course, there's one problem on the enemy team. Yeah, there's a 60 TP, ladies and gents. That is something that I'm not looking forward to having to deal with. The 60 TP has got 750 alpha damage, and if it decides to dab that 2 key, some very impressive heat rounds that will be able to obliterate most of my tank. Talking about heat rounds or premium rounds, seeing how the 60 TP is playing very aggressively here, maybe he was very confident to be in a matchup like this, and having seen the first few tanks up on the hill, pushes forwards to try and put pressure on the vehicles that are camping down below. However, I am going to be loading the gold here for the first maybe couple of shots of this game, just to be able to vanquish some terrible reckless play by the enemy top tier heavy tank. Now you see me angling my turret, and that's because we take a penetrating shot from the heat rounds of the Object 257 on the enemy team. Now of course the MAUS cheeks are absolutely garbage until you turn the cheeks away, and as we can see, that guy actually managed to go through our lower plate there. So you know what, that's where you got to trade your hit points for the MAUS, hopefully to put 2 shots into the enemy tank. And when I'm hitting him for 490 and I'm putting 2 into him, and he's only doing 440 to me, and I've got 50% more hit points than he has, eventually I'm going to be able to weather the storm and take him down. And that's what it comes down to in the MAUS. God, look at all these heat rounds, APCR rounds from the 50 TP fired at me. It's definitely the right thing for the enemy to do, because the MAUS really does bounce standard rounds just left, right, and center. And it's only really those premium rounds, when at least fired at the front of the tank, that do pose its significant threat. In fact, the 50 TPs got so frustrated that it looks like the 50 TPs firing high explosive rounds at us now, dealing 700 damage that we managed to block. I'm not sure if that hit our gun and it was aimed at the Tiger II. Irrelevant. I say, Tiger II, come with me. The vehicle that originally used to lead on towards the MAUS before Wargaming added the E75 and the E100 in the line that the Tiger II would lead on from. And we're just going to plow up on the hill, having vanquished the tier 10 tank. And now it's all about just angling our armor. Even the tier 8 Swedish heavy tank on the enemy team has fired a full magazine here of APCR, but to be honest, the MAUS, if you use its armor intelligently, can ricochet even premium rounds for the enemy tanks. It's only those super high penetration rounds that you get from the tank destroyers that are going to pose you a huge threat. So the MAUS is all about angling its armor. You'll see that I'm trying to side scrape out here against the 50 TP while also trying to keep eyes on the 257 on my right. And that 50 TP is actually having high explosive rounds completely absorbed on my tank and dealing no damage whatsoever. You see, I angle my turret here. Look, that's the angle where it's going to hit me, and it bounces off. Beautiful. And the 257 actually fires an AP round there, a standard APCR round off the 257. Maybe he's run out of premium rounds. He's fired them all at me at the start of this battle. And that's where you start to feel very happy in this tank. Once you realize, you no longer have the credits, or shall I say the expensive rounds, to be able to fire at us here. And he's now firing HE at the front of our vehicle. Dang, I make one big misplay there, however. I bounce a shell off the 257, and I'm going to dab the 2 key again, having bounced the shell off the lower plate, I believe, of that tier 9 Soviet heavy tank, and the APCR round goes through the upper plate of the tank, and then I go back to loading standard rounds. Now, talking about Tiger 2s, one is going to try and get my flank here, and I've got to just try and reverse as quickly as I can towards the edge of the map, and this is something that not a lot of people realize about the MAUS, is that it can actually go backwards at 15 kilometers an hour, 3/4 of the speed that it can go forwards. That's actually an impressive reverse speed for this tank, and it can prevent people from being able to flank it to where its softer armor is. Although really, I'm not sure if you could call the side armor of the MAUS soft. It's still, I believe, over 200 millimeters thick. But 200 millimeters thick is way easier to penetrate than the 250 that you're going to be packing on the front of the MAUS. Yeah, indeed. 185 on the side, 210 on the side of the turret, 200 millimeters of frontal hull armor, and those are the weak points. And bam! Through the lower plate of the Lurva. And for some reason right now, they're coming to the left of me. They're coming to the right. We've blocked 5,000 damage within the first 5 minutes of this game. We've also dealt 5,700 damage and also nearly 2k spotting. Yeah, there's nothing quite like the MAUS for these kind of scenarios. Now, of course, all of the enemy tanks, after we dealt with the tier 10 heavy on the enemy team, have been lower tier than us. But that still doesn't change anything, because that's what the MAUS is meant to be all about. It's meant to be the big bad boy of the game. And if anybody was playing back in 2011, you'll know that this was a pretty regular occurrence. And there I was, quaking in my Tiger 2s. I didn't even really have the E75 long before the E100 was in the game. And so I was terrified of these tanks. I was terrified of the IS-7. For some reason, I didn't really think, about it being unfair, or the fact that it was, oh no, I've got to deal with this tier 10 tank. I guess because back in the day when you couldn't even fire premium rounds, you couldn't even fire gold without actually having to fire gold, which is where, of course, premium rounds do get their kind of slanderous gold title from. You just felt that almost that MAUS deserves it. He's managed to grind up towards that tank. It's taken him a long time, and hopefully we can support the IS-7 on our team to be able to deal with him. Now, I think it's a completely different thing, and obviously as games mature, that's fine. You feel as if now, I kind of want to just be able to shoot any tank on the enemy team. That's perfectly okay. But for some reason, the MAUS, if you use its armor correctly, can still just be able to bounce pretty much everything. It's only, as I said, those tier 10 tank destroyer rounds, and especially the premium runs from things like a Jagdpanzer E100 with 420 millimeters of heat pen, that truly are terrifying for the MAUS. And look, I don't play this tank because I want to be the most competitive vehicle. I don't want to be the WZ-111-5A on the enemy team. I don't want to be the Object 277 and go hold down and be fast and just get everywhere and use some of my wild DPM. I just want to be the MAUS. And that's what this tank does great. So let me just talk a little bit about equipment I like to use on the MAUS. I've actually changed to using a super heavy spall liner on this tank. I dropped the medkit entirely because I barely lose any crew, and you know what, if artillery is going to hit you, well, it's most likely they're going to be hitting you all the time in the MAUS, so I don't really see that much of a point of a medkit apart from healing the initial stun and then probably getting stunned just a few seconds later, or at least 10-20 seconds later when the artillery manages to reload. And I like to use a gun rammer, and I don't even use vertical stabilizers on this tank. I think I'm using vents as well as chocolate to be able to min-max the protection on the tank. And while I don't have the most experienced crew, so that means that I don't have fire extinguishing on my crew as a skill, so I decided to take a fire extinguisher in. And for some reason, it seems to be working. I mean, you saw us take 2 high explosive rounds there from the enemy tier 9 Polish heavy tank with that big 130mm caliber gun, and just absolutely nothing. And one of the most satisfying things about playing the MAUS, ladies and gents, with a super heavy spall liner is when the Type 5 heavies on the enemy team don't manage to bypass to hit the weaker parts of your vehicle. And you get to return fire, hopefully with just an equal amount of gold as he's firing at you. And I wish I could see the look on their faces when you're firing twice as often as they are, and quite often also dealing more damage per shot. And so while the rate of fire of the MAUS was definitely balanced in the 920 update, and they removed a few of its hit points, it's still, in the right scenario, probably one of the best experiences you can have in World of Tanks. So a stonking ace tanker here for the MAUS with 1,323 base experience points and 7,000 damage dealt in under 9 minutes, and quite a lot of that was just kind of slowly ambling your way down the hill. And yeah, while there's lots of things I love about the MAUS, it's not trying to chase down damage at the end of the game. We made a decent profit with or without a premium account, but do keep in mind I was using a credit booster during this, so that's why this number looks so ridiculously high. And how much damage did we block here? 5,000? Okay, yeah, enough to kill most other tanks multiple times over. Now look, before all of you go away and start grinding towards the MAUS with a furious passion, thinking that you are going to be the super heavy and you're going to dominate every single game that you get into. Look, ladies and gents, I'm not going to pretend that this was not a very favorable situation to find yourself in your MAUS. Number one, a hill fight where everybody tries to come at you. Number two, +2 matchmaking. Number three, the fact that we're no artillery on the enemy team. And number four, the fact that we were able to isolate the 60 TP early on in the game and take him out, and then find ourselves against lower tiered opponents. And for every single game that you get in like this, you get into 10 where there's just people slinging heat who will hold down against your turret, and you kind of just have to be a brick or an XP pinata. But when it goes right, yeah, nothing quite compares to the original MAUS. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching it as it's released on Sunday, it's time for another World of Tanks Tech Tree Showcase on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And this week, 600 of you voted, and the majority want to see the Jagdpanzer E100. So I guess we're going to be playing another kind of tier 10 German super heavy today, which I haven't showcased on the channel since January this year. So come along right now as I start at tier 1 and work my way up towards tier 10 so you can see if it's a line that's worth grinding, or alternatively, if you already have the tanks, maybe pick up a few tips and tricks along the way. And I'm sure I'm finally going to get to answer the age-old question as to, should I pick the Jagdpanther 2 or the Ferdinand? And so I'm really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible right now on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.